Hi, this is Pat. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to show you some slow stitch meditation scrolls. I had done some slow stitching in the past, but not a lot. And back about 6 months or so ago, I came across a channel called K3N Clothtales. I'll put a link below. Her name is Catherine, but she goes by K3N. And she does a lot of hand stitching. She's based in France, but she's from England. And she showed slow stitching these meditation scrolls. And I got hooked. So here's one I did. Just little scraps of fabric. This one is only a couple inches wide. And I just took little strips of leftover fabric and bits of leftover embroidery floss. And I just stitched straight lines. Sometimes my lines got a little too far apart, so I just started a new line in the center. They're not completely straight, it's just a running stitch. Sometimes I did something like this little stitch, which I forget what it's called. And it's a elongated cross stitch to me. To tack down the edge of that piece of fabric. I used bright colors. K3N uses a lot of eco-dyed prints. That's her aesthetic. Use whatever fabric you have, whatever makes you happy. The other interesting part about this is just the texture it has when you have finished a section. It's just comforting to handle. I showed it to a friend who is not a stitcher, and she also was like, oh, I could just sit and pat that for a long time. Here's the back of it. I make knots. I don't worry about it. The back is muslin, just a strip of muslin. You could use, plain unbleached cloth, what we call muslin here in the U.S. You can use any fabric you want. You can see that here I started another line in the middle because I felt like it needed more. You can make your stitches as close together or as far apart as you want. It's up to you. I added some fun fabrics I had left over from years ago of making a baby quilt. There's some patriotic fabric. And I used quilting cottons because that's what I have a lot of. But you can use any fabric you want. Here's another one I made, or is in process. As you can see, there's a lot of plain fabric left here at the end. This was something from some type of clothing fabric. Again, children's fabric. I just mixed and matched. And see, this has not been stitched yet. I'm not sure how I'll stitch it. Here's a section where instead of just doing a running stitch in parallel lines, I outlined this flower. And I made it go into this fabric here. Here I changed it up and did some vertical lines instead of just horizontal. Here I did some whip stitching around that piece of fabric to hold it down. Again, you can do whatever you want. You can do spirals, you can do French knots, you can do fancy embroidery stitches if you want. Here, this is going diagonally. You can do anything you want. This one, I've wrapped around this little recipe card holder is what this is. It's flat on one side, has a little slot here that I've never actually used. You can wrap it around sticks. You don't have to wrap it at all. Like this one, I didn't have it wrapped around anything. You can wrap them around. This one is the size to wrap around an old spool, sewing machine thread spool, that I can wrap it around there if I want. You can attach it to whatever you wrapped it around, or you can just leave it open. Some people just glue this extra fabric on there, or there's lots of different methods of. You could attach it with a button or snaps or Velcro. I'll show you one in a minute I'm doing with Velcro. And it's just very soothing because at first you are like, well, I need to stitch in straight lines. Well, that's fine. And if you want to stitch in straight lines, and what I did on some of this is I did take a water erasable marker and a ruler and mark a few straight lines so I could get started and try to follow them, but they don't have to be. Again, you can add other stitches. Here I just did like this cross stitch around here. So this week I was able to get one of these. I'd never seen one in person, but this is a big, I think they're called bobbins or spindles. That was an industrial type thing. That's one end. This is the bottom end it sits on. It's about 10 inches long, and this part is about 8.5 inches. Yeah, it's about 10 inches. What that is in millimeters, centimeters. I'm not sure what that is. I'm not good at metric. But yes, so there it is, about 10 inches long, and this part is about 8.5. So I cut me some fabric. This was actually used as a muslin for a cloth pattern, a garment pattern I used a few years ago. And I tore the muslin up and just tore it into, I just rip it. You can cut it nicely if you want. Again, and also you can finish these edges if you want. You can do blanket stitch, you can, whatever you want, whatever makes you happy. So this one, I decided to go ahead and I wrapped it around here and drew a line with a pencil, which I think you can see there, my rough line. And I sewed Velcro on either side. Of course, one's on the inside and one's on the outside. So I can attach it and scroll it and roll it up on there after I work on it. I went ahead and put the Velcro so I would kind of know, I don't know, I just felt like it was right to put the Velcro first. I just attached the Velcro to the backing. And then I started layering my fabrics. And this is some scraps of fabric I got. Look for fabric scraps at yard sales, and thrift stores, or I know I have given away boxes of fabric scraps on Facebook. If you have a Buy Nothing group or something similar, that sometimes I just have a box full of scraps. I'm like, I'm not using these. I don't like these fabrics anymore. I'm getting rid of it. The same with thread. You can look for, in thrift stores, you can often find bags that are just random bits of sewing. This is, embroidery floss. You can find old thread, sewing thread. Embroidery floss shows up better because it's thicker. And you can find, this is like this is a pearl cotton that's rather old. I don't know how old, but I plan to use it at some point. It's a thicker thread. You can, and I just use random pieces of this, and I have a lot more than just this. Or if you do cross stitch or embroidery, you'll have bits left over. Maybe they get separated from their container that tells you what color they are. It doesn't matter. So I started laying this out last night, and these are some bits that actually most of this fabric right here came from a box I bought at a yard sale of random bits. And so I'll take, I love this, the little owl. And again, this is bright, kind of bright and cheery colors, a little gray mixed in. And I'll just start laying out pieces thinking, okay, how do I want this to look? And I may do some cutting. I don't really want to cover up the owls, so they may go on top. Personally, I try to avoid having a lot of lines. Like, I probably don't want to do, well, that's already tacked down. I'll show you in a minute how to baste it. I don't want to do a lot of straight lines. I don't want to be going all the way across with this big line in the middle. So yeah, I'm going to mix it up, fill in different pieces. Here's a piece of fabric that is sparkly. It's like, ooh, I may cut out the, kind of cut around that motif. And I know it's hard to see with the sparkles under the light. But again, I probably won't use this whole piece because it's so big. I like to have lots of small pieces. Here's some other fabric that coordinated with it. I don't know if these look like pre-cuts because they're pinked. They probably came from a charm pack. If you're a quilter, you know about charm packs. And again, this is another one that when I go to stitch it, I may stitch around these motifs somehow. I may not do all the details, but I may, you know, do a running stitch around here. I have some other pieces. Well, that came with that. Here's a cute green to kind of mix, add some extra pop of color in there. Or you can go all with one set of colors. You could just do pink and gray and white. Here's a kind of a shimmery pink polka dot I had from somewhere. I just pulled out some of my small scraps and I just look at them and go, do these go together? I don't worry a lot about it. And it is fun to sometimes put an extra little piece in there that pops. This is a tie-dye. I don't know if I'll put it in this with the little peace symbol on it. You can also use different types of fabric. This is a polyester scarf I bought at a thrift store for like $1. I don't know what it doesn't have a tag saying what it's made of, so I'm pretty sure it's polyester. And I could use it. And it's got some sheer, so I could even just put it over other fabric. If I had something I wanted to calm down a little bit, that I thought, ooh, that's a little too bright, I could have it, well, that isn't, you can't really see that. But some of these darker colors, I could put the sheer pink over it, and it changes the way it looks. I will cut this into pieces, and I can cut any shape I want. Here's another quilting cotton I had that has buttons on it. I will just sit and play. And then also, here's another fun piece. And what I do is to baste it, I do what K3N recommends. And there's some other, I forget where she originally got it. I can't remember the name of the person. If I look it up after this video, I'll link it below. Doing what is called invisible basting. So I do a tiny, tiny stitch on the front and then a big stitch on the back. And then I don't have to take that basting out if I don't want to. It's just a teeny tiny back stitch. And let me show you what I mean. I've got a thread, a needle threaded over here. And let me get it out. I just use some inexpensive spool of thread I just got somewhere that it's not real high quality thread. I'm not going to use it for in my sewing machine, actual sewing seams together. But it's great for this. So, find a piece that's, well, I can just put a new piece down here. And I can use this and it'll show up. So I go into the back. And because I have Velcro in here, I do have to avoid my Velcro, which I can feel that. Sorry about bumping the camera there. So you go in, wherever, and you pull it up. And I have a knot, so I just pull it till I feel the knot tighten. And then you take just a teeny tiny stitch, even tinier than that. Take a teeny tiny stitch. And then in the back, you're taking a great big stitch. So have your needle come out an inch, inch and a half, ever how long you want further along. Hopefully you got that. And this thread, yeah, that's one reason I wouldn't want to sew with it on a regular basis. It does knot up. I could wax it and keep it from doing that. Okay. And then you can barely see that. And once you do your other stitching on top of it, you're not going to see these little bitty stitches. And then again, I go quite a ways there. I mean, that's like an inch and a quarter, inch and a half. See, I just have a tiny little stitch and then I pull it through. And now my fabric, and I'll do that, usually like a square like this, I'll just go all the way around it. But if I usually don't get too close to the edge because I may want to come back and put fabric under here. I may want to take the next piece and put it under. So that's what I would do. Or I may want to do like this. So I don't go too close to the edge because, and if I do, I just snip the thread in the back and then I'm done. Again, with the embroidery thread, here's some, it's just, I use 2 strands. This is going to blend in with that, but here it's going to stand out. Let me get rid of this needle so that it doesn't fall off on its own. And you don't have to tie a knot in the end, or you can. It's up to you. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. I'm trying not to sneeze. The way I tie a knot is what I was taught was the quilter's knot. You put the needle on top of the thread, you wrap your thread 2 or 3 times, grab hold of where the thread is, pull your needle and your thread through very slowly. This is kind of a long piece of thread, to be honest, but, and then there's a nice little knot. It's not huge. And then I can just stitch. I can do seed stitching, which is just random little bitty stitches. I don't use a hoop for this. You can use a thimble if you want or not. If I'm doing running stitch, I usually use a thimble because then I'm not doing the stab method. I'm doing, sorry about that, I keep hitting the camera. I'm just doing this, but if I'm doing a running stitch, which is like this, you just load up. I have a chenille needle because it has a bigger eye, but you can use any needle you want, depending on your thread. And one day I'll learn to quit hitting the camera. But there you go. There's a running stitch. You can make tiny stitches, you can make big stitches. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Put your notifications on so you know when I've posted something new. And I will make some more videos about this scroll as I go along to show you the progress of what I decide to do with the stitching. And what I may do is I will probably baste quite a bit, and then I will come back and do the stitching. And oh yeah, here's where I decided to make the piece of fabric longer. I just hand stitched it, a little seam. You can layer the 2 pieces together and stitch them down, whatever. But again, if you like my channel, please subscribe and give me a thumbs up. Thanks, and have a great day.